because of their involvement in the civil and voting rights movement. Please give us a call. Our number isn't on the program, but it's 418-0800, and we're listed in the phone book, so please call us. We're going to start this song off. Come this far about say. We have come this far by faith. We are leaning on the Lord. We are trusting in His holy word. And He has never failed me yet. That's why I sing, and around, we come this far by It is my pleasure to introduce these unsung heroes. And at each living history exhibit, we have a song that I am going to attempt to share with you today. You can tell me we don't have any heroes. Oh, you can tell me we don't have any heroes. Just take a good look around you. You know their numbers will astound you. You can tell me we don't have any heroes. You can tell me we don't have any heroes. Oh, you can tell me we don't have any heroes. Just take a good look around you. You know their numbers will astound you. You can tell me we don't have any heroes. We gather today to honor some of our heroes. Oh, we gather today to honor some of our heroes. Just take a good look around you. You know their numbers will astound you. We gather today to honor Georgia Jones, Bessie Hunter, Eula Swift, Rosie Hale, some of our heroes. Salada. At this time, we have on the program presentations from organizations, families, and friends. Okay, sisters will present you with their own presentation, so you will know some of the things. For those of you who don't know some of the things we know about them, you will find out now. Ladies.
They want the arrow. brought me this far and never left me. I can reflect on my past and see my future. I know why the barriers of segregation were so vivid in Selma, Alabama. We are a chosen people. I saw the many white and colored signs above public restroom doors, water fountains. I also saw the invisible signs in public places and concerning public things. I call these invisible signs mental instinct signs. I grew up knowing my place in society. As a child, and also when I became an adult, I learned my place in society as an adult. I never liked looking back into my cruel past because I didn't want to stumble while I ventured into my future. John 14:26 reads, "But the Comforter, which is the Holy Ghost, whom the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things and bring to remembrance whatsoever I have said unto you." Jesus promised that the Father would send the Holy Spirit to comfort, teach, and bring to remembrance the things that he has said. So I have to look back in order to know what his promises are and to give him praise for fulfilling his word. The things that I did not understand during the days of the struggle have been revealed to me over the years. And I know that God is a promise keeper. He has let me view much of my promised land. I grew up in Selma, Alabama, under the clouds of segregation. The things that seemed normal then makes today's storms of life seem mild. I look back at the many severe storms I made it through, and I can appreciate as the air freshens. The Lord was preparing me for a work in him and to show my enslaved sisters and brothers that if we trust and obey him, he will fight our battles for us. I remember the respect that we were taught to have for our white sisters and brothers. It did not matter if one were younger than we were, they were to be addressed as Mr., Mrs., or Miss. I remember the many times that I stepped down off the sidewalks as I approached and passed my white sisters and brothers. If black people were standing in line for whatever reason, the whites approached the line, the blacks had to step back and allow the whites to get in front. An alternate unwritten rule was 2 lines, one for the whites and one for the blacks. There were many invisible barriers of segregation. I used it once when I was 16 years old, and my mother took us on a 60-mile trip to visit with my aunt. The highlight of this event was a train ride. She took all 7 of us children on this 1-week vacation. Every year we got to pack a couple of suitcases, lock the doors of our house, an event that only occurred whenever we went out of town. It was safe not to lock your doors to your house during those times. Everyone was poor, even those who thought they weren't. The train ride that meant so much to me became one of my nightmares. I had to use the restroom, and the barriers of segregation did not provide a restroom for blacks on the train. So I urinated on myself and had to endure the agony of sitting on one cheek of my butt and the embarrassment of meeting my relatives wet and smelling like pee. I was traumatized by this event so much so that I became a bedwetter well into my teenage years. I can still remember the soft-spoken voice of my mama saying, "Hold it, you got to hold it." I remember how I wished I could have told my parents the many times I was raped as a child by 2 white male proprietors in our neighborhood. I was too frightened to tell them. And the nipples that one of them would place into my little hand, I would drop on the ground after looking about to make sure no one saw me drop them and kick the sand over them. These episodes were so frightening to me. I would get a lump in my throat whenever I would walk up and down the street in fear of seeing one of those nickels appear from beneath the sand. I remember the many times I would become violently ill whenever my mother would ask me to go to the store for her. Whenever I would vomit to show proof of my illness, she would send one of my siblings to the store and give me a dose of castor oil for what she called a raw stomach. Both the rakes and the castor oil were repulsive to me. I was 54 years old before I told anyone about the rakes. And the only reason I told my older sister was to let her know the hurt and humiliation that I endured as a child from our white sisters and brothers, and yet I can forgive. She used to say, I can't stand white people. I know that God wishes that none should perish because he arranged it so that she could find it in her heart to love white folks. Her youngest son married a white girl, of which she did not approve. They now have a beautiful daughter, my sister's only grandchild, whom she adores. I told her God wants us to love everybody, even our enemies who despitefully use us. She cried when I told her about the rakes and how they would wait on other customers in the store first, then close the door and put a "Be Right Back" sign on the window of the door. My sister never said that it did or did not happen to her. I wonder. The jobs that we had during our teenage years, working as maids and babysitters, were cruel and degrading. We would work all day long, cleaning the house, washing, ironing, cooking, and babysitting for $2 a day. One day, my boss sent me to the deli in the white neighborhood. I stood in line for the longest time before I realized they were not going to wait on me. The white lady would look around me towards the next white person in line behind me and ask, "May I help you?" When she had served everyone behind me, she closed the window. I didn't know what to do. I was scared that my boss would be angry with me for taking so long. I went back to the house and told her that the line was so long and that they would not wait on me. She laughed out loud. I was not insulted, but relieved that she found humor in it instead of anger. She sent me back to with the food order, but she told me to go to the back door to order. I did, and it worked. These episodes were the norm during my growing up years. The one that I wish I could erase was when I hurt someone else due to the cruelty of the system. During the early 60s, at the height of the civil rights movement, I worked for a couple who had a 3-year-old son who loved me, and I always wanted to stay home with me on the days I worked for them instead of going to his grandmother. One day he proudly showed me 2 nickels that he said a nigger man had given to him. I yelled at him and I told him that was not a nigger man, it was a Negro man. No, it was a nigger man, he cried. We argued back and forth until he ran into his bedroom, jumped onto his bed and cried himself to sleep, and slept all day until his mother came home from work. She thought he was sick. He was still sniffling in his sleep. I told her that he was okay and that he had not been sick during the day. No one mentioned anything about the week before when I returned to work the following day, week. However, the little boy went to his grandmother's day after. I wonder if I caused any mental scarring in that child's life. I realize now that he was only saying what he was taught and was innocent of any cruel intent. I know he loved me and I loved him very much, but I was very thin-skinned during the early years of the civil rights movement, and the word nigger was like a slap in the face. I know that he is an adult now, but I wish that I could find, hug, and apologize to him and get that bond back. My skin is a lot thicker now, and I know that I don't have to be what someone calls me because I know who I am now, of Charles the King, of royal priesthood. Out of these trials, we birthed the song, We've Been Viewed. We've been viewed and scorned, but we don't mind when troubles deceive you and freedom is denied you. Don't worry, we'll have freedom by and by. Our God was not our shores, but we are playing for it. But still, don't worry, God made us all. When troubles deceive you and freedom is denied you, don't worry, we'll have freedom by and by. I remember my older sister and I going to nursing school together. The nursing school students were taught by the nuns, with an exception of one black civilian female, who was Miss Ada Perkins, the mother of our mayor here. During our class time in the year of 1963, we received news that our president, John F. Kennedy, had been shot. We, along with the rest of the nation, were in shock at the death of our president. I remember how saddened I was and how bitterly I wept. I had a great admiration for our president, and I felt that he was accepting of the black people as human beings and as citizens of the United States. I felt that he would have been instrumental in liberating the blacks from many of the barriers of segregation. I remember the stirred spirits of the people in Selma, Alabama during the early 60s, the boycotts, the sit-ins, demonstrations, beatings, cattle prods, Billy sticks, KKK, the deputized white citizens of Dallas County, the posse, and the killings, the many mass meetings that were held in the churches. We, the black students of the high school, would skip classes and join the protest against the system of segregation. The threat of the high school principal of the school board members would impose the threat of the high school principal by the school board members to impose strict and cruel punishment upon students who participated in the movement or faced dire consequences. For some odd reason, the threats did not deter us. We did the movement anyway. We did not feel sorry for our principal for following their rules. By this time, we had been taught the truth about injustice, and we wanted justice for ourselves and for our parents. I remember how scared, all of our scared, tired, old, ill, illiterate, crippled parents and grandparents who stood in the long lines that extended for blocks to register to vote, only to be rejected by the registration board because some could not see well enough to read. Some just simply could not read. Others could not understand what they read. And some black school teachers failed the test on the form, or so they were told. That explains how difficult the forms were made for the blacks to register to vote. The hurt of rejection that we saw in the black adults is what gave me and others like me the determination to go to bat for them. We knew that if we stayed out of school and demonstrated for the cause, it would make a difference. I was not of voting age, but I was peacefully protesting for my parents and others to have the right to vote when I felt a stick jabbed me in my side and pushed me onto the Dallas County school bus. It was one of several buses that were parked at or near the courthouse that were used to load the demonstrators and take them off to jail. Many of my schoolmates joined me in the jailhouse party that day. I was okay until I heard the clank of the doors closing. That loud noise made everything seem so frightening. The tears started to roll down my cheeks. I thought about my family not knowing where I was, especially my mama. I knew she would worry about me. My sisters and my friends that were in the demonstration line with me were not in the bus with me. I was scared now. There were 36 girls in my jail cell. I remember looking around in the small cell to see only 2 bunk beds, 1 commode in the corner, 1 dirty sink with only cold water, and a partial roll of toilet tissue which disappeared rapidly. I remember the 2 meals a day, which consisted of black-eyed peas, except the first day of my 8-day stay, we got a giant-sized biscuit with the breakfast meal. Many of the girls cried and would not eat the peas. Lucky me, I got to inherit some of their meals and eat until I was filled. The only complaint that I had about those peas is that they were not seasoned. After the first night of our stay, one of the pretty black girls befriended one of the wardens who would come onto the catwalk at night. That friendship earned us a box of salt. If no one else appreciated that favor, I did. I could season my peas. I was like an Israelite in the wilderness. I had manna. Our cry for freedom became louder, and we cried, "Oh, freedom, come right now." Oh, freedom, come right now. Oh, freedom, come right now. Oh, freedom, come right now. Been fighting for my freedom and I want it now. Down with suffering so long, even though I've done no wrong. Oh, freedom, come right now. Been fighting for my freedom and I want it now. Beat my father, they beat my mother. Now they're beating my sisters and brothers. Oh, freedom, come right now. Been fighting for my freedom and I want it. I want it. I want it now. I remember the hot, stifling days with the 36 different body odors, the stopped up commode from overuse, the cold nights of sleeping on the floor. And I can remember thinking what a blessing all of this discomfort was when I thought of all of them that were not fortunate enough to be in jail, who were being held in fields and fenced in pastures under the elements without cover. I remember the beauty of harmony we built it during the day to help overcome the sadness of being on lockdown. That was the one thing the system could not take from us, our songs of praises to our God. While I slept on the cold floor one night, I dreamed that my stepsister died. Indeed, she did die that night. some of our relatives would come to the Franklin Street side of the jail where there were windows and stand for long periods during the daytime. It was like a vigil that they held for us. I felt so proud when I looked out one day and saw my mama and my sisters. I yelled as loud as I could to have them hear me. They seemed so far away from where I was. The 8th day of my jail time, my bosses, the administrator and assistant administrator, along with a reporter from New York, came and sprung me to freedom. To this day, I don't know what my crime or penalty were, but I can still remember feeling like a traitor for getting out of jail and leaving my fellow schoolmates. When my bosses and the reporter took me home, they drove around to my back door. No one was home when we arrived. The back door was open. We went to the front bedroom where we sat and talked, and I answered the questions the reporter asked of me. Mama and my sisters arrived shortly thereafter. They had been downtown on Franklin Street to the vigil. We were so happy to see each other. My mother made me so proud when the reporter asked her, how did she feel about me going to jail? And she told him she went for a worthy cause, but if she has to go again, I'd rather go in her place. Whenever payday came for that week, the week that I had spent in jail, one of the nuns called me and asked me to come to the office at the hospital. When I arrived there, she handed me an envelope with a check in it for the entire 2 weeks. I was very happy. I remember becoming a hardcore freedom fighter when I was released from jail. My determination was stronger and had more meaning. I could see that the cost of freedom was high, and we were a chosen people and were willing to pay that price. My 3 sisters, Dorothy, Eula, and Rosie, and I were all known as the Hauser sisters in the movement. We did not have much money to contribute to the movement, so we decided to write and sing songs to entertain the masses. The system of segregation became more forceful against us, which meant that we had to fight harder. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and other leaders of the movement taught us how to fight with nonviolence, discipline, and order. That was a new and different regime for us. The progress of change was slow, but definite. Mama never told us that we could not attend the mass meetings, even though she didn't know what they were all about. But the meetings were held in the churches, and Mama was always sending and taking her children to church, so that was an okay thing for us to do. However, when the beatings, the arrests, killings started, she always got quiet whenever we said we were going to the mass meetings. Now I know why she got so quiet. She was praying for our safety. I remember the organization of SNCC, we called it SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, the SCLC, which was the Southern Christian Leadership Committee, and many freedom fighters who came to Selma, Alabama to help us fight for the cause of freedom. The young men and women went on to become productive citizens of these United States. And some of them, I remember Dr. King, Jesse Jackson, Reverend E.B. Hill, Reverend A.K. Matthews, Dick Gregory, James Bevel, John Lewis, Andrew Young, James Webb, Ralph Abernathy, Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, Stokely Carmichael, Angela Davis, and many, many others who came to help us cry out for freedom. I remember the attempted march from Selma to Montgomery, which became Bloody Sunday, because of the brutal attack of the marchers upon crossing the Edmonds Pettus Bridge, where the posse, deputies, horsemen, and other white men were waiting to attack us with sticks, cattle prods, tear gas, horses, and guns. No one was shot, but cattle prods, tear gas, billy sticks, and horses were used upon the marchers as weapons of discouragement. Many of the marchers were hurt that day, and many escaped and ran back to Brown Chapel AME Church, the point of origin for the march. Those of us that worked at the hospital in the medical profession, including my older sister and I, ran to Good Samaritan Hospital to have care for the emergencies of the injured marchers. After nightfall, we finally went home to an exhausted and frightened mother who did not know whether or not we had been injured or killed. During all the excitement, we had forgotten to report home and let her know that we were okay. I remember the 50-mile march from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama. We camped in fields along the way. The discomfort of the elements, the insects, the metal-inflated air mattresses, limited cold water and cold food were other reminders that freedom comes with a price. Ironically, many were still willing to pay the price, even though the cost was escalating. The killing of Mrs. Viola Luguzo, a white woman from out of state who was returning to Selma after the march, she was shot and killed as we all motored through Haynesville, Alabama. The beating of the two white men as they left the eatery in the black district of Selma resulted in the death of Reverend Reed. Oh yes, I remember Jimmy Lee Jackson and the deep hurt I felt when I had to keep a promise that he'd asked me to keep because I did not know that I was keeping it until his death. The bitter pill that I had to swallow as I stood at his bedside in the post-operative recovery room begging him to wake up and watching the last breath leave his lungs. I only knew him for 1 week, but I felt like he was my big brother for a lifetime. He was so kind-hearted, wise, and forgiving. He had a great love for the Lord and mankind. After attending the funeral at Brown Chapel AME Church, I became very ill, overcome with grief, and could not go on to Marion, Alabama to his burial. I really wanted to see his folks and tell them what a wonderful flower God had plucked from his garden. Mrs. Luguzo's funeral was held at a small church in Haynesville, Alabama, and we left there and went on to Montgomery, Alabama with her casket and did a march and a memorial service in front of the Capitol. The stronger the walls of segregation became, the stronger our determination to tear them down. I remember passing the Thirsty Bar Cafe on Broad Street and the scrumptious aroma of the food that was not available to me. It was one of the first eateries where we did sit-ins. We often wondered how much spit and whatever else they put in that food before they served it to us, once they decided to drop their barriers of segregation and let the blacks eat there. We did the song, "Every fight for freedom is easier than the fight before." Every fight for freedom is easier than the fight before. Every fight for freedom, we love it, we love it, we love it more and more. They all said we can do it. The landlord has opened the door. Every fight for freedom is easier than the fight before. We go to school in the sunshine and the rain. When we finish school, we have to work for the other men. And that's why I say every fight for freedom is easier than the fight before. I remember how the blacks had to sit in the back seat of the car whenever their boss would come to pick them up for work. That was so degrading to me. I hated it even more for my mother because she was an adult. The real tripper was when I prepared a meal for my boss and set the table. After I served them in the dining room, I had to go and eat my food in the kitchen. I would cook, clean, and babysit for them. I was the cleanest one in their midst, and yet I was not good enough to sit in the car next to them on the front seat or sit at the same table and eat the meal that I had prepared. Another sad day in my life was when my mother gave up her job with the white family she had worked for long before any of her children were born. One of the ladies had picked her up for work. On the way to work, she told my mother, "Hester, don't let those children get into that mess and try to go to Parish High. A segregated white school. I am so sick of these outside educators coming into Selma and trying to stir up trouble." Mama said. I was silent until she stopped that car at the traffic light on the corners of First Avenue and Broad Street. I opened the door and got out of her car and told her, "Don't worry about coming back to pick me up again." And I walked back home. The sad thing about that is that was the only job that Mama had. And she had 7 children to feed. But God, the God she served, we didn't know much about then. We thought, man, we're going to starve. Because Mama had faith, and she was not going to let anyone persuade her to go against what her children were fighting for. God gave her favor. We never missed a meal. In fact, our cupboard was full. We were fat. And we weren't embarrassed at Mama having to ride in the back seat of a car with only 2 occupants. I look back now and I see all of those walls, signs, and barriers of segregation as signs of the time. I remember when George C. Wallace stood in the door of Little Rock to block the black students from integrating that college. But I also remember his public apology to the blacks and who he trusted to care for him after his injury and throughout his illnesses. Aren't we proud to have a community college here in Selma, Alabama, named in honor of a governor who wanted to best the unity of blacks and whites? I had to smile when I saw God's handiwork. My daughter and my 3 sisters attended George C. Wallace Community College here in Selma, Alabama. God is truly not slack concerning his word. How can we reach the top of the mountain if we don't go through the valley, or know the good without experiencing the bad, or appreciate rest without a race? Yes, I appreciate my valley experiences. Those are my growth periods, the times when I can get up close and personal with God. Today we have come to share with you all the mountain view of our valley experiences, because we know that hatred is the tool that Satan uses to destroy, and love is the tool that God uses to restore. We are using our love tools as payment on our brand new home, which Jesus has already prepared for us, so that we can do as the old gospel Grace used to sing, "Steal away home." Steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus. Steal away, steal away home.
That was beautiful. Amen. So now you see, some of you that didn't know, see what some of us are doing. Now, thank you so very much. It's a fun time now because you can get your presentations from organizations, family, and friends. And so people won't be, wonder how you do this thing. I'm going to start off with a presentation from an organization. I am representing Sister Rosiel Dunklin and the Phyllis Wheatley Chapter 656 of the Order of Eastern Stars. Sister Dunklin could not be here with you today, but she wanted you to know that she is thankful for your past, your present, and she knows that you all will continue to keep doing beautiful things in your future. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Oh, I see Senator Hank Sanders. He's up.
It gives me a special pleasure to be able to present this resolution. But before I do, I just want to say something about the power of song. We often underestimate how powerful song is. I remember reading about how the slave owners thought that we were happy because we would sing while we were working. And they didn't understand that that was the only way we could make it through that work was that song. If they had looked around, they would have seen that prisoners who are out on the road, they sing. Somebody leads and they follow and they go through. When people going off the wall, they often sing. And they're not happy about it. But song is so powerful in that it helps people to get through whatever it is that they have to face. I used to hear my mother in the kitchen when she had all kinds of problems. And I'd hear her singing. That's how powerful song is, because it does something to the spirit that allows us to go on when there does not seem to be any way. And so, to the House of Sisters, I'm just so glad to present this resolution. It's from the Alabama Senate, and I have a copy for each of you. And it says, resolution honoring the House of Sisters for their storied songs of the 60s and for having a living history exhibit at the National Voting Rights Museum and Institute. Whereas we are proud to honor the House of Sisters for their story in songs during the 60s and highly recommend them for having a living history exhibit at the National Voting Rights Museum and Institute in Selma, Alabama. Whereas 4 African-American sisters, Dorothy Jones, Bessie Hunter, Eula Swift, and Rosa Hale, were born in Selma. Dorothy, Bessie, and Eula are graduates of R.B. Hudson High School and studied for their nursing career at Good Samaritan Hospital School of Nursing. Rosa is a graduate of Tuskegee Institute High School and prepared for her nursing career at Pensacola Junior College and Lawson State Junior College in Birmingham. The sisters have a combined 150 years in the nursing profession. Whereas the House of Sisters, members of the NAACP and SCLC, remember Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., John Lewis, who is now Congressman, Reverend Jesse Jackson, who ran for president, and many others who came to Selma. They cared for injured marchers on Bloody Sunday, and also cared for General Jackson in Marion, Alabama, who died, and who brought about the Selma Montgomery March. Whereas the House of Sisters did not have money to contribute to the civil rights movement, but they had songs in their heart. At night, they would go home after the mass meeting and write freedom songs for the next night's meeting. And in on their own way, they made monumental contributions to the movement. And I'm also informed that when Viola Luso died, said they were involved in that in a particular way, and I don't have all of the information to be able to say, but their contributions are great. So it says, be it resolved by the Senate of the Legislature of Alabama that we hereby recognize Dorothy Jones, Bessie Hunter, Eula Swift, and Rosa Hale, the Hauser sisters, for their outstanding contribution to the civil rights movement. Amen. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution shall be provided to the Hauser sisters with tribute and esteem for having a living history exhibit dedicated in their honor at the National Voting Rights Museum in Selma, Alabama. I hereby certify that the above is a true, correct, and accurate copy of resolution number 03-155, filed with the Senate of Alabama on April the 23rd, 2003, and is signed by McDowell Lee, who is the Secretary of the Senate. And I hereby present this and just commend them for taking what they have, which was song, and make it what they need.
On behalf of the National Voting Rights Museum's Board of Directors, officers, and staff, it is our pleasure to present these prayer plans, and there are gifts that we think will last for a minute, and we have something a little bit more permanent, but unfortunately Kinko's didn't have the rate. For each of our living history exhibits, we try to preserve it not just for the museum, but for those persons who have been chosen and honored. On tomorrow, they assure me that you will have mounted a poster-sized copy of our tribute to you. It sort of looks like this, but it's really a beautiful presentation. And we'd like to have you understand just how honored and blessed we feel to have had you as our living history designees for April 2003. Again, I'd like to remind you that as a special thing that we're doing today, we invite each of you to tour our museum before you leave here, and we will accept any donations that you choose to provide to us so that we can continue these kind of programs. Again, thank you on behalf of the museum.
Organizations and friends, and it is now time for a presentation from a family member who could not be here with you today. However, he says, dear friends and family, words are the pen of the heart, but music is the pen of the soul. I can remember reading that quote in one of my mother's Reader's Digest. Just happened upon it one day, and the saying stuck with me. Like most people know, music is my life. It is everything that I am. It embodies who I am and is personified in each musical phrase I hear. Each melody I hear is a piece of my soul floating on the wind. In saying that, I have often wondered, why is music so much a part of my life? Where did such passion and zest, mere scribble on paper originate? It comes from my family. My mom, Eula Swift, my aunts, Dorothy Jones, Rosie Hale, and Bessie Hunter. I have seen these remarkable pillars of humanity travel life's roads of bumps, curves, and turns, all the while pressing and prevailing with a smiling face and a song in heart. That song is what I hear day to day in my heart. The song of four strong black women whose zeal for life and pursuit of perfection has allowed them to reach goals the likes of which most persons only dream. My mom and my aunts are doers. A valuable lesson I learned from them is not to give oneself options when it comes to getting things done. There is never an option to be anything less than the best. To do any less is cowardice, a word not known to the Hausers fits. My grandmother would also say, do your best. After you do that, that is all that is required. I have learned that the best is all my family is accustomed to. My family has been singing together for as long as I can remember. They have been making beautiful music together and sharing it with the community and the world. I am so very proud to be continuing the legacy of music through my own artistic endeavors as a classical pianist accompanist. It is through their encouragement that I am the musician I am today. If it were not for my early training as an accompanist, my Aunt Dorothy, on her many Sunday solo engagements, I would never have known the excitement of collaborative music. Having to follow along as she crooned out spirituals fit for heaven's choir helped me learn that music is not a selfish art. It is a craft in which many people bring their own personalities, emotions, and artistic aptitude together to create beautiful music. I have truly been blessed to have such a supportive musical family. Thank you, Mom and Aunt, for giving me the greatest gift I could ever have, the gift of music. I love you all. Keep looking for my name in lights. Ernest. All right, Ernest. Are there any more presentations? If not, we'll have remarks by Fire Rose.
I'd like to say something. I want to say thank you. It's very moving. I'm very glad that I came today, and thank you again.
While Fire Rose is going there, I want to say that I was fortunate to be around the Hauser sisters all of my life. They were my grandmother's neighbors, and their mother was my grandmother's close friend. So a lot of the things that they shared, it was a renewal of things that I had probably forgotten. But it certainly is good to hear their story, and thank you for being so honest. Thank
you so much. I'm just so inspired. I didn't know y'all as sisters. I heard bits and pieces of the history, but it's just so powerful. I was determined to get here. Pat made sure. I was in Nashville last night. I couldn't get a plane or nothing, so I finally convinced somebody to drive me to Birmingham. So once I got to Birmingham, my mother doesn't like the long hair car. She said I don't take care of it, but I convinced her I gotta have that car. So I was able to get it, even though I was going back down. I'm so glad that I came. Your story is truly, truly inspirational.
Yes.
And I think we got to make a documentary out of your story. And we got to make sure that while y'all are still breathing, we all, like my little granddaughter said, we all got to go. But we got to get you into as many school systems as a team, as a group. And I'm taking this time to say, please, 21st Century, our youth leadership camp will be this summer. You got to come and share those songs and those stories with them. I want to first thank Pat, because when I started these living district cities, about 8, 10 years ago, it was hard to get them done on a regular basis. I mean, and to me, that's what the museum is about. We are in a unique part of history where we don't have to wonder what happened 100 years ago. To wonder if somebody's telling it right. The people are still living who made the history.
That's right.
All we have to do is ask them, do you know what a unique time in history this is? And so, Pat, I want to thank you for your regularity, because you know how hard it has been to get these histories on a regular basis. So I really, really want to thank you. And let's just give a opportunity. Of course, I want to thank the whole museum staff, because Pat can tell you this cannot take place with one person. And usually the best living history exhibits are when the family comes together and helps us. Because we're so understaffed. And before I go any further, I want to recognize, whenever we have an elder like Mr. Doyle coming down this and gave so much, we have to stop right then, and just say thank you. So Mr. Doyle, we've already had this living history exhibit, but as long as Mr. Doyle is on the face of the earth, we should never miss the opportunity to talk to him. Do you know that Dr. King's march? I won't tell you his age, when he's over 4 scores. He almost outwalked me from First Baptist. He didn't miss a beat. And I know there are other history makers here. Can I ask all of our past living history makers to please stand at this time and salute Mr. Doyle? And let's just remind him of how much they're appreciated. You shouldn't do things for recognition, and people didn't. These people did not do this. You don't risk your life for recognition. But it's only human nature. Everybody, from a little baby on up, sometimes just needs to be stroked. And there's nothing wrong with that. So when we have a chance to say thank you, we have to take the time to say thank you. So thank you, living history makers, and thank you, sisters. I can't remember when y'all first told, which one of you told me about your involvement, other family involvement. One of you was my mother's nurse, but that was over a year ago, and it took a while, but we finally did it. Yes. And this is just the beginning. Y'all better get your calendars out, because y'all gotta keep telling this story. You just got to keep telling the story. The last comments I want to make are these. How the sister said that freedom, and I didn't know y'all wrote such beautiful songs. We got to record that music. And we got a studio, so we can do it. You know that. How the sister talked about the struggles and sacrifices of the 60s. But my brothers and sisters, if we don't continue to make those same types of struggles and sacrifices, we will lose our children in the next generation.
Amen.
And so the museum is not just about documenting the past. I like what Linda said about celebrating what they did, what they're doing, and what they're going to do. Right. But if you want to honor the lives of our sisters and Mr. Doyle and people who've given so much to the movement, we got to keep moving. We got to keep challenging racism. And we got to challenge it even when they use our people as the tools. And it's hard to do, because when we see our people involved, we get timid. But I don't care who it is, if a person is not doing right and they're being unjust, we have to challenge it.
Amen.
And that's a real true test to me of Christianity. Jesus challenged a whole system of corruption. He was willing to pay the price of death. We don't have to pay the price of death. Sometimes it's just discomfort. That's all we have to pay.
And support.
You know, that's all we have to pay. I was in the courthouse this week in a very unjust situation. And I had to pay the price of feeling bad after I had to say some things to some folk I didn't want to say. I know y'all think I like being a hell raiser, but I don't. Every time I raise hell, it bothers me. I'm not at peace with myself when I have to do it. But sometimes you have to do what you have to do. So how, sisters, I tried the music too. And without the music, I know I couldn't make it. Because the music has a way of just soothing you. And it really, music is almost prayerful. The songs that you write. I never heard some of them. They're just wonderful songs. But I also want to challenge you to continue to write the songs to your lives and the life that you live. Now, my mother would not want me to say this, but I'm different than my mother. Yeah. My mother doesn't like to admit to hard times. I'm going to tell you, when Mac Ray was having a hard time, she would get mad when I would tell people. But I'm not like that. I believe, even if it's your children. I remember back in 1990, in that civil rights movement, we almost lost everything. My house and everything. I didn't hide it from my children. So I don't believe in hiding my economic situation. The museum, I found out, even Dick and the other staff don't know it. Riley's cut off all funding for the museum. And we are not discouraged. They expect us to sink. They expect the museum to close. A few weeks ago, they had those attacks on Hank Sanders. It was all leading up to this. It was all leading up, he's giving money to the museum, he's giving money to the youth organization. Now you know, if he was doing anything illegal, he would be in jail, and I would be in jail a long time. But they want to create the appearance that we're doing something wrong, so when they take away money from our institutions, nobody will still worry. Well, these buildings and these institutions are all paid for. This building is completely paid for. And it doesn't belong to me, it doesn't belong to you. That's right, it's completely paid for. It belongs to you. It's a non-profit. It belongs to you, community. We're not going to lose these institutions. We're going to be here long after I'm gone. Your children somehow going to be here. This museum will continue to tell the story long after you're gone. Your songs will be heard. Oh, yeah. Our grandchildren will sing them. That's what this museum is about. Amen. And all we need you to do is to become a member. That's all. There's an African proverb that says, mighty rivers are filled drop by drop. We shouldn't even have to depend on the Republicans, even though those are our tax dollars. Those are our tax dollars for it, my government. And the thing is, they've been giving white institutions and museums millions of dollars. A daycare center in Opelika. This is back in the 70s when we first started Mac Ray. They were getting $1 million a year from the state. Nobody said a word. The little $50,000 or $75,000, whatever they give the museum and the 21st century is nothing compared to what they give white institutions. And yet some of us sit around here and say, we know their money. Oh yeah. So what I want to say to you is, you don't have to do it today. But when you're able to, please get a membership in the museum, because we're not going to close. And we have some excellent workers here. We're going to make sure we keep them. People have to pay their bills, their mortgages. We can't expect these people to work for free. We're not working for free. We're going to find the money to keep this institution open. I will say there are many volunteers in this museum. But volunteers alone cannot pay the life, the board, and etc. So that's the first thing I want you to do. To honor these women and what they stand for. Please get a membership to the museum. There's one other thing I want you to do. This summer we're having a 10-day camp about 10 miles from Selma, where we'll teach our kids for 10 days in history, because they cannot get it in school. They cannot. That's why I want y'all to come and talk to our children. I was just in Florida, and people are saying the same thing all over the country. And if we don't teach our children in our churches and our organizations, it will not be done. Remember last year when we put that little article out about slavery in public schools? Superintendent May got up and apologized. There was one white parent said she didn't want her child to know about slavery. But isn't it interesting that we were going to kill 5,000 people in Iraq Because somebody said they had weapons of mass destruction, but they ain't found nothing. And yet, no one has even apologized for the terror of slavery in this country. No one has apologized for the death of Timothy Jackson, for the people who were beaten on that bridge. No one has said that was terror, and nobody has even apologized. Does that not bother you a little bit? Don't you see the hypocrisy? Don't you understand why they don't want you to know the history? Don't you understand why they want you to dislike and hate people like me? Don't you understand it? Because if you don't understand it, we will continue to be fighting this struggle for freedom for another 100 years. So I beg you, my brothers and sisters, let's teach our children our history. And you don't have to even buy a history book. Just go to your neighbor, go to your grandma, go to your auntie, let them tell the story. For those of you who can, please raise some money in your church to send your children to attend their camp. It's $150, but it includes everything. 3 meals a day, field trips to Montgomery, everywhere. And we will be bringing in people from all over the country and locally to tell them their history. That's July the 11th through the 18th through the 30th. Tawana, hold your hand up. If you want to know more about it, please do that. The last thing, those of you who know other people, we don't know everybody. I wasn't here in the 60s. Maybe that's why I'm so driven to do something about it. Please do not leave here without filling out a card, giving us the name of the person, the address, or telephone number, so we can contact that person to make sure we get their history. I don't want you to do it later. You're going to do like me, you're going to get somewhere and forget. So if I can get Pat, can I get some paper? Who would like to recommend someone this afternoon? Hold up your hands and we'll get you a sheet of paper to get the names. Anybody else? I know you know somebody. Please raise your hand so they can see you. Here's some paper. We're going to do that real quickly because we want this story to be told. And anybody that would like to volunteer at the museum, it's going to be hard these coming months. So if you can volunteer 2 hours a day, 2 hours a week, 2 hours a month, whatever you can do, please put your name on the volunteer list. The last thing I want you to do, and my sisters who write all the time, I know you're going to do it. They're about to appoint Pryor, the Attorney General. They're about to put him on the 11th Circuit. Now, I don't have to tell you how conservative the courts are with them. They're taking away affirmative action, and they want to take away the voter rights act. Pryor, and I got the testimony, he testified against. He wants the Voting Rights Act repealed. He also supports the NRA, these people who buy these guns. Now, what bothers me is that the congressman that you elect, Arthur Davis, is pushing hard for Pryor to be on that 11th Circuit. It is up to you to write your congressman, because y'all elected him with this right to vote, to tell him there's something wrong with him supporting a man for the high court who's trying to take away our right to vote. And if we didn't have that right to vote, he wouldn't be the congressman. So I really want people to write Arthur Davis. I got his address. Tell him to withdraw his support from Pryor. Also write Washington. Tell them we cannot afford to help Pryor, who was the Attorney General, who never prosecuted Joe Spitzer with all that crime, who didn't prosecute all those people who committed all that voter fraud when Mayor Perkins won. It is very important that we speak out. If they can speak out 30 years ago when it was dangerous, can't we speak out today? Amen. I hear too many people say amen. So, Arthur Davis will give you his address before you leave. Thank you very much. Thank you.
One of the first black students to integrate the Selma Public School system. Barbara, will you please stand? Who? Barbara Galloway.
Before we get down to our benedictions, Mr. Remedius Thomas is here. And would you come and do your solo for us this time?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I want to dedicate this to my aunts, which I love very much. And apart from the bottom of my heart, we are so sorry. But we're going to do this and dedicate it to you all, and my mom, who's also in the audience.
Yeah.
In
please come on up.
Good evening, everyone. I must start by simply saying to God be. I want to just congratulate the House for your contributions and for allowing me the opportunity to stand on your shoulders.
All right.
It's a blessing to be able to serve. I know your time has been well spent. I've been double booked all evening to arrange 2 events per hour, and it's been difficult to get to any of them on time. But I'm just thankful that God just allowed me to be here. And just to be able to see another day. I would just ask that we not retire, because the struggle is still on. There's still so much that needs to be done. African American unemployment rate has doubled in the past 2 years. Our national debt has gone from a $300 billion surplus to over $1 trillion deficit. And this Leave No Child Behind unfunded mandate is going to leave a lot of our children behind. And we allow this to continue. And so I just encourage you, we just got to stay on the wall, because there's still a lot of work to be done. I know everybody wants instant gratification. We want instant coffee, instant hamburgers, and we want instant jobs and everything else, but it doesn't work that way. There are some things we have to do. Senator Sanders can't do it by himself in Montgomery. James Perkins can't do it by himself as mayor of South. We have to make sure that the right people in Montgomery, the governor's office, and the right president in the office in Washington, in order for us to be able to do what's necessary for our people on the ground. Now, I understand that we just have to take it, but that's just the way it is.